Today, we'll talk about Phalaenopsis orchids, specifically how to get multiple spikes on your plant. Now that the temperature is dropping, many plants are spiking around the northern hemisphere. So if you're curious about that, if you would like to know how to get multiple spikes on your Phalaenopsis, please stick here with me and let's explore this subject together, shall we? So the first thing that you need to know, when you buy a beautiful Phalaenopsis at the supermarket, grocery store, flower shop, I don't know, wherever you find it, because these are the most popular orchids most parts of the world, so they are everywhere. The first thing that you notice is that you have a beautiful flower spike, probably if you bought it in bloom. So when the flowers start to fade and die, one thing that I usually do, and I would advise you to do it as well, is cut the flower spike on the base. So basically you go to the base of your plant, the base of the flower spike, and you snip it. When the flowers are spent, you can definitely cut this branch. Sorry about the external noise. You can definitely cut this spike on its base and wait for the next season. These plants, they are seasonal plants. So they bloom usually in spring, or they start to spike when the temperature drops. It's not that you should have something in your home like it's freezing conditions. You can keep intermediate conditions inside your place, but when the plant feels that the temperature drops at nighttime around 20 degrees Celsius or between 17 and 20 degrees Celsius, that's when the metabolism of these plants changes, and you need to understand that's the time for it to start spiking. So for you to rebloom the plant, the first thing that you need to know is these plants are seasonal plants, so they will only spike for you again when the temperature drops. So you need a drop in temperature to be able to rebloom your plant. The second thing is, as I mentioned, you brought it from the supermarket. It has beautiful flowers. The flowers are gone. What I do is I cut this flower spike because I think in the next season, when the temperature drops, these plants will produce new flower spikes, and the blooms are going to be larger and in larger numbers than if you keep it blooming and reblooming. If you don't know, these plants, they can branch even when the flowers are gone, that can produce another spikes from the nodes and then can keep blooming. But I prefer to cut the flower spike, let my plant be, produce roots and leaves, and then in the next season I will have brand new flower spikes. But that's personal, that's what I usually do, and that's how I get multiple flower spikes. And the next thing that you should do is repot your plant. Phalaenopsis that comes from supermarket, nurseries, grocery stores, they have been kept in this medium, in the pot that they are potted in for a very long time, and the medium is not fresh anymore. And these plants, they need a fresh medium to be able to produce new roots and keep growing healthier and healthier. So the first thing that I would do is to repot your Phalaenopsis. There are many videos here and other videos on YouTube and on articles on the internet as well that tells you a little bit more about types of mix and mediums, things that you can use to pot your Phalaenopsis in. These plants, they are epiphytes, which means that they don't grow in soil, so they grow on trees. They adapted to live in the air. You should definitely pot it in a mix that's good for epiphyte plants. So you need to remove it from the pot and pot it in a mix that's for orchids. You can also find it in garden centers, flower shops, mix that are already made for orchids, you see there. So these mixes usually they are perfect for epiphyte plants. You can go with one of these mix. Most of them will contain bark. This mix is the mix that usually most of the Phalaenopsis will come potted in. So bark is super fine for this plant, especially if you are a beginner. If you want to try repotting your first plant, bark is perfect for it. One of the things that will help you to have multiple spikes is to repot your orchid in a brand new mix. When you're repotting your Phalaenopsis, you may notice that some of the roots are rot or they are dead, so you will cut these roots You offer it new and fresh medium. And then the next step is, where are you going to place this beautiful plant? Phalaenopsis are not highlight plants. They survive well with filtered light. So if you have a windowsill that this plant's not going to be exposed to too much strong direct light, or you have curtains and this plant can be near a windowsill with filtered light. If you have growing lights for other plants, you can definitely place it under growing lights as well. You have to offer some light. This plant needs to photosynthesize to produce flower spikes. You don't offer it mid-light sun when it's spring and summer, because you can burn its leaves, which is also dangerous because leaves are very, very important to keep your plant healthy. But you find a spot where you have good light, but not direct sunlight, and you are okay. They can be in a coffee table, they can be in a windowsill, they can grow in your shelving, even with light bulbs, like kitchen light bulbs in your office space. All of these are fine if this plant received natural or artificial light. The next thing is about the roots and about watering. When should I water my Phalaenopsis? Oh, this one needs some water, by the way. So what you have to do is, every time you're watering your plants, or from time to time, you check the pot. And if the roots are becoming grayish, that means this plant needs water. So you will offer water when it needs water. Don't overwater it, don't water it too little. And if you check and the roots are green, that means that the plant is okay. You can wait a little bit more, wait for the roots to dry out. So you will offer it more water. If you overwater it, you may have some root rot. The roots can start to die. And without roots, again, the plant won't be as healthier as it could possibly be, and it can also die, so you won't have beautiful spikes. And remember to, especially if you're a beginner, please don't water your plant from above. Fill the container, the decorative pot that your plant in, and let it maybe soak for 10 minutes if it's potted in bark, or just place some water if you have other materials, like I have moss here, so I don't soak it, but if you live in a hot country, you can definitely soak it for like 15 minutes. Your Phalaenopsis will love it, but don't water from above because you may have crown rot and stem rot. There are infections and can kill your plants super fast, super quickly. So you won't have spikes, but you probably lose your plants. To avoid that, especially if you don't have experience, fill the pot with some water, let it soak, and then your plant will be watered. Talking about temperature, I've already told you that direct sunlight can burn its leaves, and also frozen conditions are not ideal. Although for this plant to bloom, it needs a drop in temperature. This temperature can be around 17 degrees Celsius, but not below that, or at least not a lot less than that, because these plants are tropical plants. They don't enjoy freezing conditions. So if you live in a country like I do, that's pretty cold during autumn and winter time, don't place your plant outside. You need to keep it where you have intermediate temperature. So if you are comfortable, the plant will be as well. So be careful with temperature. If you are comfortable here, the plant will be super happy. That's the most important thing. Next thing, it's about fertilizing. So what I would advise you is to buy some fertilizer for orchids that you can find in flower shops or garden centers to start with. There are other fertilizers online, but do your research and remember to fertilize your plant. Phalaenopsis are heavy feeders, so you need to fertilize it. What I do usually every 2 weeks, I give it a little bit of fertilizer. There are some fertilizers that you can buy and you just place a little bit inside the water and you can combine it. But definitely buy some fertilizer for orchids, read the instructions and fertilize it at least each 2 weeks. When it's autumn and winter, you can maybe fertilize once a month, but it's really, really important to fertilize these plants, especially if you want to have beautiful flowers. It's like feeding it with nitrogen, things that maybe the plant can't produce itself. So it's really important for you to feed it a little bit. The last thing for you to have beautiful spikes that you have to consider is the age of your plant. I have, for example, I have some seedlings or baby Phalaenopsis that I bought online or that someone sent it to me. They are so tiny that they are not able to produce spikes yet. So if you know that your plant is very, very young, you may have to wait 1 more year. And another thing is, when you buy a new plant, some plants, they can take a while to adapt to your home as well. So one of my Phalaenopsis that I'm showing you now, that has like 3 spikes. Last year it didn't bloom because it was adapting to the new mix, to my home temperature, to my home conditions. So some plants, they take a while to adapt as well to your own environment. So they may skip 1 year and not bloom for you this year. But don't give up, because in the next one, these plants, they can reward you with many spikes. So that's something for you to consider as well in the first year. Some plants will skip blooming, but they definitely bloom for you in the next season if they are healthy plants. So to conclude all of the things that I said, what's the most important thing for you to have beautiful and multiple spikes is to have healthy orchids. So if your Phalaenopsis is well fed, it is in a good medium, receiving adequate light, intermediate temperature, and being watered when it's need its water, chances are that you have beautiful flowers when the temperature drops. Remember that some plants, they can produce multiple spikes. They are genetically produced or genetically adapted to produce many spikes, but some others, Phalaenopsis, depends on its genes. They will only give you 1 spike per plant. And that's okay. It depends on the genetic of the plant. But even if you have only 1 spike, they may branch out for you and produce 1,000 of flowers. Anyway, not exactly 1,000, but you can have many, many flowers. So if you give your plant adequate care and love, it will definitely reward you with something like that. And soon, maybe 1 month or so, I will have beautiful Phalaenopsis flowers all around my house. These are one of the easiest orchids that you can find to grow. So I hope you enjoy them, even when they are without flowers. Look after them, see them growing, producing new roots. I find it a joy when I see that my plants are doing super well. And yes, and let me know down below if you have multiple spikes on your Phalaenopsis, if anywhere you live in the world they are already spiking, and also let me know what's your favorite type of orchid. I would love to hear more. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.